help them develop those systems through the skills that I teach and connecting them to the concepts or individual tactics that they work with. So that's kind of where my mind starts from. So I'm going to root it in skill, usually starting with skating, and then how do I connect that individual skill all the way up to, for today, I'm focusing mostly on breakouts or ozone attack off a puck retrieval. So stop me if anyone has questions along the way. I haven't got a ton of video on this because I've been revamping it as we go. This has been a big focus of mine for the first month of the season. So every team I've worked with is doing this progression in their practices. So I have a couple videos to show, and then I have 2 practice plans I put together on Coach Them that I'm happy to share. I think I sent them to Wally this morning, but they kind of go through the practice plans. And these would be, I would say, U13 and above, although our U11 AA team could absolutely pick up a lot of this quite easily. So I've used it for U13B, which would be our lowest level, all the way up to our junior team and everyone in between. So it's not just a particular age group or a particular skill set that could do this. So I'm going to get rolling in a bit here. Just I'll try to screen share, see how that goes. Can you guys see that or not? I can't see it. Can anyone know?
No.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
I can't.
Yeah, I see it.
I can see it.
Okay.
Do I have to click my screen share?
No, I clicked mine, Wally, sorry. But I actually can't see it either, so that's fun. So I'm going to stop that for a sec.
The joys of Skype.
Yeah, this is fun. Let's try it again. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to stop. I'll just talk for a little bit and we can try to figure this out. What I'll do though, oh boy, Skyping. I could probably throw the practice plans in the chat, I'm guessing, pretty easily. And then you guys at least will have those there to look at while we try to sort all this out. So let me know if you can see those. They should be coming through now. They're not tiny. So what I've been working on is puck retrievals. And the foundation of all of it is tight turns. So having coached in women's hockey forever, the player's ability to pick up loose pucks and beat that first player, I think, is quite weak at all levels, right? So they don't have that intention to, go grab the puck and beat that first player. Often think about a breakout, they get it, they stop, they look up ice and look for the person on the wall. They don't actually try to beat anyone. So that's often because their tight turns and their ability to accelerate out of them are quite bad. And again, I coach U9 with my daughter and I coach all the way up to the junior team. And I would say not everyone is very strong at tight turns. So that's where I start with my skill development with all these practice plans, is just basics of tight turns. And we don't need to talk about all of that. But what I will say is that every time I'm teaching a tight turn, I'm teaching them looking over their shoulder before they tight turn. So again, scanning, awareness. I know we've talked about that ad nauseum on these types of calls. But that might even look like with my daughter's U9 team, even just standing still and looking over your shoulder and calling out numbers that people are holding up, or calling up. It's even easier if you say just have your stick up or stick down. So if you're standing behind the player or she has a partner and you just have your stick up or down, she just yells up or down. So she doesn't have to look at your hands. But even just, instilling that concept of just being able to look over your shoulder. Because again, how many of us have coached for a billion years and we say, okay, make sure you shoulder check on the breakout, and they go, okay, coach. And then in practice they do it. And then in a game, they just stare at the wall. And then we wonder why we can't break out for a minute and a half, because they never looked and got any information. So again, you can start stationary and just infuse that in there. But on every tight turn we do, they're always looking back first. And again, we can add those, holding up the fingers or the sticks to, get that in there a little bit more. So again, all the edge work, inside edges, outside edges, the crossover to come out of the tight turn. Those are things that we would use in a 60-minute practice, which is usually the focus on skill for me. I'll use small area games to fill the last 20. I would say 10 to 15 minutes is purely on tight turns. And that might, with a slightly more advanced group, include carrying the puck. That might include kind of a cat and mouse game or follow the leader, where the second player follows the first player and mimics her tight turn. So kind of more of a chaos in a zone, higher tempo. The other thing we add in, other than just the scan, would be some sort of deception in the tight turn. So again, we've seen, this is all over like Instagram and social media, like even just a basic weight shift, faking with your stick, eyes, and legs before you tight turn the other way is quite hard for a lot of the players I work with, right? If they just have to turn, most of them can do that. If they have to fake they're going one way and then turn the other way, a lot of them, it all falls apart. They can't generate any power going into it or coming out of it. So that would be, say I'm working with a team, the first practice, we just work on the edges of the tight turn and accelerating out with a crossover. That second practice, I would work on deception and say, okay, now we worked on tight turns last time. Now we're going to work on using our stick, eyes, and body to add a weight shift before we turn the corner. And again, some of them get it, and some of them it takes a long time. Even just that look one way and turn the other way tends to throw a lot of their body mechanics off, because their upper body is not quiet over their legs. They kind of move every time they turn. There's a huge amount of sway with their upper body. So again, that's pretty basic. At this point, we haven't even touched a puck. We're working on retrievals, right? Because their pucks are loose for far too much of the game, right? But at this point, we haven't touched a puck yet, for the most part, until maybe the third practice, or if I'm on with the junior team and they pick up the tight turns a lot quicker, we might get there a little earlier. So that would be where we start, tight turns and scanning, and then we're going to start making the basic retrieval. And again, I'm going to see if I can do this again, and I apologize. You know what? I'm going to share my desktop. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
My messy desktop? Okay. Let's do it this way. I'll just pull this. Can you guys see this video?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to show the beginning of it. So these are three, I guess they would have been U15 players from last year. So this would be a basic open ice retrieval. This is not, they've obviously done this before with me. So I'm just going to show the clip a couple times. It'll roll. So you can see they're trying to add that deception beforehand with the stick, eyes, and feet on that turn. They're not bad at it, right? So they're not scanning back right now. There'd be a progression here. They would scan before they do the fake. So I'd have them look back and maybe say up or down from the girl behind them before they use the 3 pieces of deception here. But again, for, this would be a pretty baseline level. I'd like to see them cross over more out of the tight turn. The focus of this practice session with them was more the deception as opposed to the acceleration out. Okay, but this is, if I can get all our players to be able to do this before they pick up the puck, our breakouts and our attacks off rebounds and loose pucks are going to be pretty good, because these players are going to be able to get around somebody, right? If they can do this even before they get to the puck. So with these players at this level, the AA players, I can see them starting to do this in games quite a bit. So this to me feeds everything else. If you're good at this, you're going to have the puck a lot more, and you're going to be able to break out and attack more easily.
Kim, I just want to interrupt, because what you're doing, I've been working with Pee Wee girls teams. This is the breakout.
Absolutely.
You're going to create time and space. You can have a structured breakout, but if you can't do this, this is the key to set it up. So I wanted to bring that in, because I'll be sharing this with female hockey coaches in Calgary. Thank you.
No problem. And again, this is, a lot of the teams I work with, right? The coaches are like, well, our breakout is this play, or it's this pass, or we're trying to do this. And I always say, well, if this girl can get the puck, break someone's ankles by making a little deception and just skate it out clean, that's a pretty good breakout. Not to say she shouldn't headman it, not to say she shouldn't try to make a play east-west to open up the ice, but isn't it better that she does something like this to beat that first forechecker than to just stand on the goal line and try to pass it up the wall, which is where all of them go, up the wall. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. So that to me is the foundation. So that's where we start with everybody. And again, I would say U11 and up, but probably our higher level U11s are going to be able to break that down. So I'm going to just show one of the practice plans now. So I've included 2 today, and I would say these are very early in the season, like learning practice plans. So like they have no idea, they've never worked on open ice retrievals or off.
You froze up on me. Did she freeze up, guys?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm at my dad's place, which lacks the high-tech internet connection. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to share the practice plan. Let's try this again. We'll share my brutally messy desktop. So we'll get practice plan 1 here. So here's some like tight turn progressions. Again, Wally's got all of this, and I'm happy to share it. Wally, you can do whatever you want with it. But these would be samples of tight turn progressions that we would do.
Is it on the screen, Tim?
Kim, no, like,
Oh, it's not
I
working?
think when you tried to shut your screen down, you didn't. And then when you went to reopen it, you
We're
shut
on now. Oh,
now. Oh, it clicked on there.
there it is.
Okay, thank you. Thanks,
Okay.
guys. Sorry, technology. So there, like some sample tight turn stuff that we would do. So I always have in between drills. It's like kind of my secret sauce, but there's always a drill we do for 2 minutes in between other drills that repeats throughout the practice. So it's just a great way to get a ton of reps. And so an example here, and I had video and for some reason it wouldn't upload today. You just do a figure 8 with a partner. So if you can visualize, if Tim and I are partners, I'm holding up fingers for Tim to see and call out while he does tight turns, kind of like a bow tie in front of me. So horizontally in front of me, he's doing tight turns. So not away from me, but an 8 kind of out in front of me. So every time he turns, he's got to call out either numbers on my hand or stick up or stick down. We would do that the first break in between drills. So say after we do this, just the tight turn progression, I'd have them do the figure 8 with no puck. And they're just calling out those numbers. So every time they turn the corner, they're looking over their shoulder and they're trying to call the number as early as possible. The next time we do the drill, they'd be doing it with a puck, which you probably would not be surprised how quickly their ability to call the numbers out goes down. And then the final progression would be with passing. So they would be not calling out numbers anymore, but they'd be passing with that person and trying to give good targets. So again, just an easy way to, in between every drill, get a lot of extra skill in. And they know, okay, back to the figure 8. Now we're going to do it this way. And it just recurs throughout the whole practice. So just something I've always used depending on the theme of the practice. The in-between drill fits the theme of the practice. So if we were doing a passing practice, they'd all be passing drills. So this retrieval progression, and I apologize, it's a bit small here. Let's make it a bit bigger. So we wouldn't do all of this in one practice. I just like to put it all on one page. So depending on the team I'm with, I can make it easier or harder. So I always start with open ice retrievals first. It's less scary for the girls than retrieving a puck off the wall. They're more worried they're going to smash into it or that they won't pick up the puck. So keep in mind, they've already done a ton of tight turns by this time in practice. So we would start with, I call them you go, I go drills. So if Tim and I are partners, I go first, and then when I get back, Tim goes. So you don't need to blow a whistle or anything. I always tell them just get inside the dot line before you turn. So you don't need a cone. They just know where the dot line is, and then they can go around that. So again, we would just work on a basic weight shift to a tight turn, right? So this might be a little bit of a fake one way, turn the other way. Then they'd send the puck out inside the dot line. fake one way, turn back into it. These first two progressions we spend a lot of time on, especially if you're trying to add deception. But even on that first practice, before I really infused deception, just even getting them to time how to pick up this puck in a tight turn effectively. So the way I teach it, and I'm happy to debate this with anybody, right? I always teach the tight turn as inside, outside crossover. So inside edge, crossover. And when they hit their outside edge on the ice, they're trying to punch back in the direction they're going. So as I make this tight turn, let's say I'm punching through with my right foot, I ride my inside edge of my left foot, and then I punch my right foot back so my toes point to the boards. That kind of rockets me around the corner, and then I add the crossover at the end.
Kim, I'd like to interrupt. I'm not disagreeing at all, but in my day, it was the reverse. You know, to get that inside leg on the ice, because kids have trouble turning one way and getting their weight on the outside edge of the inside leg. So
Yep.
you're saying you're using basically a jump, as they call it, a bit of a jam stop turn. So it's a quicker turn, but you got to come out of it regardless of which one with that cross under so you can accelerate.
Absolutely. And I find it's a great point, Wally. And again, this is with my audience, with the girls. I find a lot of them just haven't been taught how to tight turn properly. So they either do it like they're skiing down a mountain, so their feet are too close, or they only use the outside leg. Like they're turning with one leg on the inside edge. So even that idea of just punching the inside leg through on the outside edge is very foreign to them. And this would come way back when we're working on tight turns earlier in the practice. But I found if they actually lift up that leg and lunge into it, they start to understand the concept better rather than keeping both legs on the ice. When they keep both legs on the ice and turn, they tend to look like they're skiing down a mountain. So
Kim,
again,
explain that again for my sake. I don't know if everybody understands this. I know. Just describe it. Which foot? You know, would you do that again?
sure.
We
So
focused on inside leg ahead before and turning, but go ahead.
sure. So if we look at the drill here, it might help. So as they're skating in towards the middle of the ice,
Yeah.
right? Before they've started the turn, they load the inside edge of the outside leg, right? So you're still facing the middle of the ice, but you've started to load the turn, right? So you're on the inside edge of the outside leg.
Okay.
In order to turn the corner and go back towards the wall, they're lifting up and punching that leg through on its outside edge to carve back in the direction they came from. So they've still got the inside edge of the outside leg on the ice. Then they lift up the other foot and punch it back. Again, this is making a really tight turn, okay? Punching them back towards where they came from. So that's the inside edge of outside leg is step one. Step two is outside edge of inside leg. Step three is the crossover. And when I say step 1, 2, 3, like they're happening pretty darn fast. But in the beginning, they actually have to do it slowly and lift up their feet. So whether that's a crossover or cross under, you know, we're working on both those edges when they cross out of it. But those are the three steps I'm trying to amplify on the tight turn. And when they pick up the puck here, I'm trying to get them to touch the puck on the second step, which is the outside edge hitting the ice, so that they accelerate back with the puck and the puck pulls them around the corner, right? So the puck leads them back where they want to be. And I apologize, I don't have clear video of this. My video software wasn't working properly this morning. But that's, again, if I'm getting really granular with them, which I try to, I want them to pick up the puck or touch the puck for the first time on this when the outside edge hits the ice. And when I do it that way, they tend to accelerate out of the turn with the puck much more quickly. So again, this would just be open ice retrievals. And I ask them, I say, where do you use an open ice retrieval? Where would this happen on the ice? So they have to say, okay, well, maybe on the breakout if it's not against the wall, maybe on the regroup when it's just floating around in the neutral zone. It happens all the time, right? But I asked them where they would use this skill. I'm not telling them you use this skill here, what they usually don't understand is how often it happens in the offensive zone, right? They understand the regroup and the breakout, going back and getting the puck, but they don't necessarily understand going and getting a puck and turning back towards the middle of the ice in the offensive zone. So again, the first practice is open ice progressions. So again, I just have some passing here just to, again, the higher level groups, you know, I get them to pass as they're crossing over. So they're on one foot or the other foot. I don't let them take 3 steps before they make the pass. And then this last progression here, which is sort of more on the right.
Kim, pardon me, when you get the puck, do you talk about the hands? But you're, like, I know with a puck, you go into that turn sometimes carrying a puck. Do you go wrist across?
No, no,
Okay.
I always go hands away.
Lost you again, yeah. We've lost you, Kim.
I
Wi-Fi.
never say always. I will say,
Yeah, I wouldn't say I never, sorry guys, this is going to be fun going back and forth today. You guys can talk when my internet dies. It's fun. It's like a water break. No, I wouldn't say never. And in this instance, I mean, if you think about the way I've drawn the drill, and I'll throw it back on the screen here in a second, crossing your hands over and building a wall might not be the worst thing. If you've got someone right tight on your butt and you're just trying to get away from her, you're not necessarily trying to make a play. That might actually be a great way to keep it tight and build that wall. I would say generally, I want them to keep their hands away. If it's more an open ice, because we want them to be on a position to be able to make a play. But again, the girls tend to have the chicken wing, top hand tight all the time. So even if they're crossing their hands, they've got to get their hands out away from their body. But yeah, it would be more of a focus to have hands away especially on the open ice ones. When they get into the wall, it's harder for them to have that distance on the tight turn. They might just have to have their hands close because they're navigating so close to the wall. Okay.
Kim, let's get to another term. Morris Lukovich has mentioned this. Your hands may be away from the body, but if you bring your hands close, you put your hand behind your hip on that turn, it keeps the puck close and you come out of the turn ready to shoot. So that's something I just wanted to bring up, that I've been a wrist across guy from the Howie Meeker days, short stick theory. It's easy to cross the wrists and do the tight turn and cross over, but now and with the longer sticks, I found the hand behind the hip helped them turn better.
No, and I often use the cue, like you want your top hand coming out of your back pocket or out of your side pocket. So you want it to be like out there, especially on the backhand side. I'm always talking to players about like not squishing their pillows. So their top, like if they squish their hands in, they're squishing a pillow. So I want them to pretend they have a fluffy pillow between their top hand and their body. And their goal is not to squish that pillow. You know, again, sometimes they have to, but if we're talking about having maximum ability to make a play coming out of the turn, we don't want them to be squishing that pillow. So hopefully you guys can see can you guys see the practice plan again, Wally?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so just want to go quickly over this open ice retrieval here. So now we'd add back pressure. So they'd have a partner chasing them off the wall. And the first version of back pressure we would do is the player behind puts her stick either on the left or the right and makes it blatantly obvious which side she's going to have the stick on. So now the player has to look over her shoulder and make a read. And she's going to, if we're doing deception, she's going to fake into the stick and turn away from the stick. If we're not using deception, she's just going to find the stick and turn away from the stick. So that's, you know, really where we're adding a little bit more scanning and awareness. So we would start that at about 50%, and it would be scripted pressure. The player behind just puts her stick clearly one way or the other. And then we would add it to be non-scripted pressure, where the player behind is just playing it like she normally would, trying to chase that player down. So again, they're not carrying the puck here. They've got a player behind them who's pressuring them. They've got to read where that pressure is coming from and then pick up the puck while under pressure. So that's pretty challenging once you get to the point where they have to make that read because they don't already have possession. So adding deception in there, you know, again, I would say is a relatively advanced skill that I would use with players later on, because in the beginning, they're just worried about where the heck is that girl and how am I going to pick up the puck without falling on my face. So practice one with this, I would say on the retrieval progression off the wall, we might get to back pressure. We're probably not doing the little passy ones I have in the middle there. And the back pressure would just be with that simple read of the scripted stick. And that to me, if I can get to that before I go into anything resembling a breakout, we already have won the breakout, right? If they understand how to read where a stick is, pick up a loose puck and accelerate away from that player, I think we're doing pretty well. So here would be a drill that I just use. It starts to look like a breakout. It's not, I don't call it a breakout. So the coach just puts the puck in and they have to skate it out under pressure. So the second player, again, it might be a scripted stick. It could be a coach putting pressure on if it's, you know, if the players are a little bit more green. And this player who picks up the puck here, the X, just has to skate it out as fast as she can on her side of the ice. So again, with the girls, they're going to want to go behind the net and run away from contact. So I make sure they stay on one side of the ice. And what we start to see here is they're going to turn up ice away from pressure, and that player is going to be right there. So now we can start to say, okay, how do we beat her? You haven't beat her with that first turn. Are you going to turn back? So here the tight turns come back in. Are you going to turn back? Or are you going to drive skate around that player and continue in the direction you're coming from? So I kind of let it happen organically and see how they do, just trying to skate it out. And then once I start to see the forechecker, I guess, and I don't call her that, but the defender being a bit more aggressive and the attacker doesn't get a clean exit, we bring them back in and say, okay, well, you didn't get it out on the first tight turn. What did you do? Oh, I turned back the other way. But what you'll see a lot of them do is they turn into the girl and then they try to like Tommy toe drag her when they turn into her to try to break the pressure instead of turning back away and creating with another tight turn. So again, this drill I would do with as young as U11, probably the U9s. It would just probably happen a little later in the season when they can actually handle a puck and tight turn with more confidence. I also do it with U9s. I do it with a ringette ring to start. So
Kim,
yeah.
I'd like to mention again, because watching Tom practice and the other coach of the Pee Wee 13s, I really appreciate the teaching you're doing. You are a skills expert teacher. The coaches like Tom and Wes may not get into the details of those specific skills. So I've sort of tried to simplify it for the average coach who isn't, you know, doing such specialized detailed work. And I'm looking at your diagram here. And the first thing I thought on the diagram is tight turn, go to the wall. I'm thinking of breakout. And that's that whole idea, the checkers chasing you and you're drawing them. Tom Malloy mentioned under pressure in the ozone, as soon as you get the puck, if you shake your head, that's a friend of ours did that all the time. That head shake, they bet you could go the other way. Even if you couldn't tight turn well and cover it in a, you know, technical perfect fashion, the importance of the fake and the tight turn, skating out of the turn, I would emphasize. So all I talked to Sam Holmes about last week was just skating around the rink slowly, call for, fake inside, turn outside, go the other way without a puck, and then with pucks. Skills between drills, because everybody's running conventional drills. And I'm just keep up with these details. They're huge. I'm just saying maybe the average coach with their players can have them skate around and learn about slow, fake inside, go outside before adding a puck. Thank you very much, Kim. I wanted to get that in.
No, and that's great, Wally. And I would say I would add the deception usually in the second practice. So we would come back to these drills and revisit them and I always have the 3 parts of deception, right? Eye, stick, body. So we've all seen the stick wave. right? That often accompanies the head turning, right? And that can beat people really easily before you get to the puck. I always was amazed how well it worked when I was doing it to other people, because I didn't even have the puck on my stick, but they still went for it. So weight shift or, a jab step, is sort of a new way of faking as well. So you can add stick, eyes, jab, or stick, eyes, weight shift. And you're right, Wally, a lot of players will bite on that. Whether it's the defenseman chasing you in the offensive zone on the rebound, or whether it's the forechecker chasing a defenseman on the breakout. So I just don't always start with the deception on the first practice because I just want to get them to amplify tight turning. Sorry, I put the wrong version of this in. So see where the X players are, they would actually be up by the coach. I was doing this way just specifically for a particular coach because I was the only one running the practice. So I was actually feeding pucks in from the middle where the players were. But typically I would have the players up top. So now we're actually going to call it a breakout. And I'm going to still keep them confined to one side of the ice to force them to have to deal with more pressure. So obviously, once we open it up to the full zone, it's going to be easier for them. I'd rather they have to solve the problem in a smaller space first. So again, it looks identical really to the way this is set up. So I apologize. I should have drawn it the same way up here. But depending on which practice I'm putting this in, there's the 1-on-0 skated out, which is identical to this, or the 1-on-1 skated out is this drill here. So now this is where I start to get a bit nerdy about it. And this is the way I'm teaching it now with the girls. We're going to add the second player on the breakout. And so, we've all taught, open up on the wall, or the center is low and slow. I'm trying to just kind of break the mold a little bit. So I'm talking to the second player about being a backpack. That's the term I use. We're going to have a backpack player. So the second player in is the backpack. And when you tell a player she's the backpack, you don't have to explain it. She knows she's like right with her teammate, a stick length away. Okay, as one of my players says, she goes, I'll be like COVID away from her. I'm like, I don't love the term, but yes, that is exactly what I want you to be, a stick length away from her as she's going to retrieve the puck. Now, this breaks the mold of a lot of the ways we used to teach breakouts, right? That player's kind of on an island. Go get the little black thing, Sally, and let's see what you can do with it. So we have a backpack player. That's the second player, second quick. The reason I explain is, well, what if that girl blows a tire? She loses the puck, or the pressure player steals it from her. You can't be hanging out on the wall. You can't be floating around in the middle. And again, we're not working this positionally at this point. This isn't Ds and forwards and centers. This is just humans going to get a puck off the wall and to skate it out.
Kim, I just want to, it's so applicable. Coaches that work on breakout, they have their forwards standing at the top of the ringette line waiting for the pass to come. I work with Tom's U16s. We call it the goal line. Your use of backup, a backpack, is perfect. I've always said you may only have to come back to the ringette line. You can get a quick up then. It's a matter of figuring out and going to the right place, but backpack, quick, close support, I really like that term. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, and so I'm putting it in the context of that the breakout player is under pressure, because I don't know how many like U13 girls hockey games you've watched recently, Wally, but it's like full pressure all the time. You're never going to see a controlled breakout. It's just like banana hockey. Let's just chase, right? So even if the team's in a 1-2-2, there's hard pressure on the person picking up the puck. So, but to your point, Wally, the backpack player's trigger to move is once the puck carrier makes the tight turn. So once your teammate has gained possession, has turned up ice, then the backpack player can engage. So you can imagine on a dump in where your defenseman is going back to get it and you're going hard to be the backpack, but you're still up by the ringette line. If that player turns up ice, you don't need to keep being the backpack because she's now coming up with speed. So that's the trigger. So the backpack player is going in as second quick, and she's going to turn and open up once the retriever picks up the puck and is looking up ice with full possession. So now we've solved the problem of, well, there was a girl really tight on me. She didn't really have it. And you've got the center standing at center ice. So what I'm teaching right now is the backpack player has to make a read. She turns the opposite way of the puck carrier. So like you said earlier, Wally, if the puck carrier turns up the wall, the backpack player turns to the middle. If the puck carrier turns to the middle, the backpack player goes the other way. So you've instantly created space, right? And the girls are really hesitant because they don't think, if they're the backpack, they don't think they can in one turn create a 6 to 10 foot pass. They think they're going to be too close to the girl, right? So it takes them a little bit of while to figure it out. I teach an open pivot in this particular scenario, obviously not a tight turn from the player who's receiving the pass. Although sometimes I would, if there wasn't a lot of pressure. So that instantly, that idea, and it's amazing. I just started teaching it this way this year. Even my low level kids who just came out of house league U15 players, so they never played rep hockey. They've probably not done very structured practices. They're now playing U15B. They pick this up in 10 minutes or less, being a backpack.
I want to mention something here. The support forward on breakout, and I've done this with Tom with great effect. We teach front foot stop, always face the puck. T-start, which opens you up to face the puck. Target with one hand, easier target. So those teaching points, and I may share that when I share this video with the audience. But those little key teaching points, they're vital to success in the big picture of things. So thank you.
No, that's great. And I watch coaches run breakout drills where like everyone's turning their back on the puck carrier. And then the coach emails me a week later. I'm like, I don't know why we can't break out. I'm like, well, because nobody knows where the puck carrier is and she fell over. So we probably should have kept an eye on her. So again, if this is the first practice plan, I would get to 2-1-0. So the backpack player and the turning away from the way the puck carrier turns, single pass coming out. I might get to the coach applying pressure and the puck carrier having to make a read of which side this coach's stick is on and tight turning the other way. So that, again, I don't want to spend 30 minutes on the same drill in practice, but I would say in about 10 minutes, I can get them to understand backpack 2-0. And if they get it pretty quick, we're going to throw in coach being really nice with a nice stick position. So they have to continue to make that read. And then you've really worked on breakouts, right? I mean, they're making a single pass. You could add a second pass, right? And again, I'm now working up with teams of doing it like with 3 players in this area. And how we teach the third player is different because she's getting open and being creative. She's not the backpack. But I think if you can solve the first 2 in, supporting each other and making a little breakout pass, even, I think of Thomas's team playing in the Olympics. I mean, this is how they broke pressure on the breakout all day long, right? I probably didn't call it this, maybe did, I have no idea. But that was how they were breaking out. This is how you break out under hard pressure. So I don't go now with them, well, on your breakout, when Sally's the center, like we don't do that. I don't do that while I'm there with them. But the feedback from the coaches has been that none of the teams I work with have had any problem breaking out. In fact, they're breaking out extremely easy using this. So, and they're not working a ton on breakouts other than when they're working with me. So that's really good feedback for me. It doesn't matter if they can do it in practice. I need to know, is it working in a game? Are you getting stuck in your end? The feedback is they're not getting stuck in their end.
Tim,
with using this system.
Tim?
Yep.
Yeah. Just for clarity, Kim, I mean, this is all great. So if I'm getting this instruction at practice as a backpack player, I love the analogy. And like you say, if you're coming back in the zone, you're hustling to be a backpack versus coasting, standing and watching. So if we go one step ahead, and you might be getting there, but now if there's a puck retriever, and obviously in a game or in an upcoming drill, there's a checker, is the backpack player's target to be a backpack on the checker? Because obviously if she's a backpack on the offensive player, she's gonna be right beside the checker almost. So just for clarity, maybe talk through that.
Yeah, totally. She's the backpack on the checker, right? So the checker would be in between the two. And then, and that's, you know, depending on the team, like we might instantly, I might tell the coach, pin the puck carrier. Just go pin her and see what happens, right? And then you instantly have second quick support on the defensive side, right? So I don't necessarily say, okay, now we're going to teach it on how you defend, but when the breakout breaks down and someone gets pinned, right, the forechecker wins, right? All of a sudden, we're in perfect support position if we're the backpack player. So that's typically what I would use to illustrate it. But no, that's a great point for clarification, Tim. Thank you. So,
and obviously, the backpacker needs to read how much pressure is the retriever under. Obviously, the more space between the retriever and the checker, then sort of, I guess the sort of the, not the less urgency to provide the backpack, but you know, you're going to have a better opportunity. The retriever's going to have a better opportunity to turn up ice versus being worried about, like as you say, a pin or a contact and a turnover, where the second quick backpacker is needed, so to speak.
totally. And I always tell them that the trigger is your teammate turning up ice and getting eyeballs up ice, because we've all seen the girl who gets it at our blue line and there's no pressure and still skates it all the way behind our net. And she could have just upped it, but for whatever reason, she decides to skate it all the way back into our zone, right? So I tell the backpack, once she turns up ice and looks up ice, then you're going to open up. So even if there's no pressure, sometimes that's the read the defenseman makes or the center or whoever's first back makes. So that trigger has worked really well. So they don't go too deep and they don't leave too soon. And they have to wait to make that read.
Peter Whitney.
Peter's got a question. Go ahead. Your mic's off, Peter.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Kim, question for you, because I love the shoulder check. My guys would always tell them coming in 3 times, shoulder check before you pick up a puck so you have a sense of what's going on. But with your backpack there and the communication piece between those two players, at what point do you teach that backpack player to, because I'm assuming they're doing the same thing, right? They're coming in, they're shoulder checking as well, scanning the situation, being eyes for that puck carrier, telling them, hey, going wall, back to the middle. At what point do you introduce that?
Yeah, I would say that is a great point, Peter. And that would be once we've added the pressure and we're trying not to give too much load to the puck carrier. So I always say the puck carrier, like, she has to get used to solving the problem herself, right? With no help. So not to say we won't help her, but we need to start with her being on her own and not getting that external load from her teammate, right? If she can solve that problem without someone saying, you got time, she can just figure it out on her own, then she's got a really great foundation. And then we can say, okay, well, now we're going to make it even easier for you. Sally's going to tell you what side the stick's on, or she's going to tell you, quick up, or she's going to tell you wheel behind, or that kind of thing. So I like to make it a little harder first to have that tension, and then release that tension by adding, that level of communication. But absolutely, that second quick has to be scanning and looking for pressure. I think we tend to get into like 5-man breakouts way too fast. Like, I watch teams now doing 5-man breakouts all the time, or 5-player breakouts, and like, it's barely October, right? And so if we can build that communication just between second quick and the puck retriever, then to your point, we're golden. We can break that first pass or beat that first forechecker, and we're off to the races. So no, that's a great point. And I would do it probably, if this is a practice progression, probably the second practice or the third practice, we would start to talk about the communication of second quick. So this would be the last drill of, not of this practice plan, but of the like skill coach part of the practice plan. So now we would put it into a regroup, right? So it's still an open ice retrieval. It's identical to what we just did on the breakout, but now they're actually going to go and attack off of it, right? So I've written it here as D's and forwards, but when I first do it in practice, it is not D's and forwards. It's first player, go get it. Second player, be the backpack. Figure out which way she's turning. Turn the other way or open up the other way. Get a quick little pass. Okay. And then usually I engage that puck retriever almost right away. So we're only going to do a 1-on-0 version of it for like a moment. And then very quickly, it's going to be a give and go. So the player who retrieves the puck jumps into the rush. And whether it's a 2-on-0 or a 2-on-1 with the coach giving pressure, that transition happens really quickly because we've already got all those reps on the more breakout version of the drill to get them thinking about how the backpack works and how to create quick support. So again, this is sort of where the final teaching drill, like pure teaching drill, I would do in a 60-minute portion of an 80-minute practice, or if it's a 60-minute practice, we might not get this far, depending on the level of the team. But you can see here in sort of the notes of the variations, this can become 5-on-5 or 5-on-0, like if you want to, real quick. And obviously you can add second pucks all over the place, but the focus would be the retrieval, that quick little pass to the second backpack player, and then speed up the ice through the neutral zone. So that brings it all together pretty well. And, it hinges all entirely on that tight turn and that scanning and that quick step up the ice. So every single drill, even my little in-between drills with the figure 8, is still amplifying those same skills. So
Kim, I want to interject just because I'm thinking of coaches and how they approach breakout. And if you have a pregame warm-up, Dom, I think you had a pregame warm-up at your tournament. Most teams practice a dump in 5-on-0 breakout. And one thing I see them doing at that level is dumping the puck in and the forwards just parking, going right from the outside down to the wall as opposed to come back through the middle and then locate. So that's sort of like coming back like a backpack in a unit of 5 and then spacing yourself relative to the breakout. I just wanted to throw that in because when they practice breakouts without this, coming back to the middle, coming back to the home plate, and then fanning out to the available necessary spots, they're working on, it's a bad habit. So I just wanted to bring that in, that if they're going to do a dump and breakout or a regroup and breakout and the forwards are moving to support, they don't just go and park, they skate into the middle, especially on the breakout. Okay, thank you.
yeah, you could even say like in a pregame warm-up, right? You could do this sort of breakout retrieval the way I've written it up and alternate, like just say stay on your side of the ice and then you take a shot from this side and this group goes, right? You're gonna have 3 players engaged on each side really quickly, right? It's not 5-on-0, but you could easily run that in. So here would be practice number 2. I believe strongly in using the same drills for 3 practices in a row or similar drills because in the first practice, the girls are scared and not confident. The second practice, they're like, okay, I'm starting to get this. And by the third one, they're like, I got this. And I can actually like think and do it at speed. So you'll see a lot of the same drills here. I would start with the same tight turn progression I did in the previous practice, but they would add that deception. So they would add eye, stick, leg, deception before the tight turn. And that would be the key teaching point, because in the previous practice, we would have already done all the tight turns. So adding that in now after they've got a little bit of an idea of the proper edging and the crossover, cross under coming out tends to work really well. I would keep the same in-between drill. You can imagine how funny the girls are with showing the numbers. They get like 2 hands up. They're showing 00. Sometimes someone puts up a middle finger. Anyways, they have fun with it, with the in-between drills. And, again, it keeps it quick for me in practice. Okay, we're going to go back to that figure 8 drill where you're, making the a bow tie in front of your buddy. Let's do stick up, stick down, or numbers or whatever. And like they're just into it fast, and they're getting tons of reps in. So if in the first practice we did open ice retrieval, now I'm doing into the wall retrieval. So it's the exact same teaching points, except the puck's on the wall now, right? So again, I would say to them, where do you see this in a game? I mean, this is everywhere in the game. On any time the puck is touching the wall and you're racing for it, it's an into wall retrieval. It changes a little bit depending how much pressure is on you, right? But I would ask that question, where does this happen in a game? Oh, on the breakout. Oh, in the offensive zone when I'm going to retrieve a dump in. Oh, in the neutral zone when a regroup falls apart or whatever it is, right? And then we would go through similar progressions. So, weight shift, tight turn, put the puck on the wall. They have to, it's amazing if you ask them to put the puck on the wall, a lot of them don't have the touch to actually get it to go and sit on the wall. Like they don't have the ability to grade their effort to get it to sit there. Like they're smashing it or it only goes like 4 feet. So it's actually an interesting athletic challenge to get them to pass it hard enough that it sits on the wall. So I just showed, yeah, go ahead, Wally.
I'd like to interrupt because when coaches dump pucks in, sometimes where they place a puck, number one for safety, throwing it back, you want to create enough space so you don't crash into the boards. And that's one of the things I've found with some coaches in some small area drills where they've placed pucks. They just slid the puck in too tight, players went in too straight, and there's a safety factor there. So I just wanted to make sure coaches are aware of puck placement in any drill, safety first, and then purpose of the drill second. So as you mentioned with those girls.
No, and that's great, Wally. And I think having watched, like a lot of the injuries happen when the puck is against the wall. So it's going to happen in the game, right? The puck is going to get glued to the wall in the game all the time, right? It's going to be there. So this is where that weight shift, that deception beforehand, right? And then I'm teaching them how to do this safely. So the timing of your weight shift and your tight turn becomes critical, right? And it's hard because not all the rinks are the same to say, okay, you need to be surfing or you need to be on your inside edge by the hash marks. That doesn't work at a tiny rink where the hash marks are practically touching the wall. So I'm usually triggering them saying 2 stick lengths away, you've already started your weight shift or your deception so that you can tight turn into the puck and not lose any speed, right? So you don't end up smooshed against the wall. So that's an ideal situation. But of course, if there's more pressure, you're probably not coming out on a pure tight turn back in the direction you came from. You're probably going up the wall or down into the corner. So the only thing I would add into this and the into wall progressions is they're not always coming straight out. Often they're going to be doing that bow tie figure 8 that we worked on in the previous practice when their buddy was showing fingers or they were handling the puck. So now they might come up the wall and turn back and turn back. So now you're getting more tight turns because when it goes into the wall, the chances of you just coming out clean, there's just not as much space and time depending on where we are in the zone or where the pressure is. So we would do very similar progressions as what you see on the kind of top part of the drill, but we would do them into the wall. And then here I'm just showing throwing it into the hash or throwing it down to the goal line and how they would use deception coming out of it. So again, those drills would already be familiar to them. They would just be doing it into the wall instead of off the wall. And then it's the same drill again that we did the last practice, but now the puck is on the wall. So in the last practice, the puck was kind of floating around in here. So it was an open ice retrieval. Now their puck is on the wall. And so what happens is, I don't explain the drill any differently. It's okay, let's do that same drill as last week, but the puck's on the wall, but the girls struggle to get the puck off the wall. And so the backpack player leaves too early because she gets excited. Even when there's no pressure and it's a 2-on-0, she thinks that player is going to just pick it up clean and tight turn out and we're going to be off to the races. But often they overskate it. Often they mistime their deception and they end up smooshed on the wall and stopped. So it's interesting to see just by the puck being close to the wall, how that backpack player assumes that her teammate's going to have the same level of success and actually leaves a little bit too early. And then of course, as we add more pressure, right, it becomes more stressful for the player because she's that much closer to the wall than she was the previous week when I was floating the puck over by the dot line, or over by the face-off dot, sorry. So again, it's the exact same drill, but it's a lot harder because the puck is on the wall. And I'm not always putting it down here on the goal line, like it might be in the corner, it might be closer to behind the net. The goalies are usually off in goalie world at this point, so we don't need to worry about running them over. But it's the same thing as breakout off the wall. And then we flip it. This is where they actually have to become hockey players. And now we do it in the offensive zone. It's the exact same drill. If we have goalies, but now you're going to retrieve a loose puck and you're going to turn up. Instead of trying to break it out, you're going to get an attack. And I just showed some versions here. I've got a million of them, right? But even that idea of go and retrieve that puck and just get to the net and get a shot. It's the identical concept, right? They still have to do the deception. They still have to do the tight turn. They still got to do the crossover to get speed. But instead of skating out of the zone, they're going to the net. So I teach the breakout part first before I teach the attack. That's just always the way I've done it. And then when I do it that way, the attacks seem to be quite clean right away because they already understand the concept of it and they don't stand on the wall trying to make a pass. Now, the backpack player is a little bit more challenging here because she doesn't, like, they're not trying to break out. She's trying to be creative. She's trying to find space, right? And so she doesn't know whether that's over here or up here or where it is. So this is a lot more challenging for them in terms of their creativity than it is on the breakout. For the breakout, they understand they got to go north. So it kind of restricts their space a little bit. So again, we would do a 1-on-0 version. We would do a 1-on-1 version where they got to beat someone to get to the net. We do it where they have a teammate pressuring them to get to the net. And then we do 2-on-0. And this is where it like just all of a sudden starts to be who understands hockey and time and space and who doesn't. Because you'll have the second quick come too close, even though there's not a lot of pressure. And then it's a 6-foot pass that's not really very useful. You'll have the player who hangs up by the top of the blue line and never even goes into support. So I always say it's the same backpack support. If she's under hard pressure, we need to be 2 stick lengths away. You need to be right there in case she needs you. And then if she turns up ice, you can be creative and open up. Again, the nice thing about the attack is you usually have a third player. And so she can be open up on the other side of the ice or below the goal line. Go ahead, Wally.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. And I almost say you've got a having an actual 2-on-1 offensive low zone play situation allows your backpack player to figure out where to go. On a naked 2-on-0, it's hard to, there's no judgment. It's just sort of imagine what space you could go to because she's not going to get checked. There's not going to be a turnover. So in the game situation, the figure it out concept, a live next stage, mastering that deceptive skating, getting to the front of the net, going one way. The quick close support in the O-zone really depends on where the checker is and where the open space is going to be when it all ties in where the puck carrier is going to go. So that finding the open spot, the soft area for the second player, would you change the term backpack to something else? And I haven't thought of it before, but you're a bit of a fox here. You're figuring out where to go. You're not getting into tight. You've got the puck.
I still use the same term because then the player, it's something that can translate through the whole game for the players. It could happen. You could use a backpack in the neutral zone too. It would be everywhere, right? And so, but again, to Tim's point earlier, if your teammate is retrieving a puck and she's the only one over there and she's going to turn and get her eyes to the middle right away, like you can hang out on the back door and be open, right? So again, it's that second player making the read. Do I have to be second quick? Like maybe you decide you want to go and do a cross with her and a cross drop or something like that. Like the attack version, to your point, Wally, is it's a lot harder for them. They want to have a play. They want to have this this little play I've put here, where you kind of reload the slot and jump in the low slot for that, quick little play to the net. The girls want that. Like, tell me where to go. And I want them to not tell them where to go, just to see what they come up with first, right? Because they're just going to stand still and look and go, what do I do? Right? So I want to challenge them to make them figure it out before I say, well, you're going to stand here or you're going to do this, right? Because in a game, we might be looking for that play, but if it's not there or she turns the other way up the wall, then you're going to have to support her up the wall. So with most of the teams I'm working with, I've only really touched on this maybe 2 times on the attack side of it. And we're doing it all as 2-on-1s, right? So that you'll see a lot of more crossing and, I guess cycling type of play. But this would be just sort of the introduction drill to get them to think about back support on the offensive side or in the offensive zone as opposed to our own zone.
Dominic Pittis.
Hey Kim, thanks.
Hey, Dom.
This is awesome. I love the backpack terminology. I think that's great. Obviously, we've heard second quick before, but the backpack is something I think would really resonate. I think, and it just kind of came to me now as far as on the offensive side. And on the defensive side, you said going the opposite way, the way that they turn. I think that you could probably potentially, use that on the offensive side as well. And then you would have a kind of a low support or to the wall, and then you could build in, you talk about the crossover, because typically, if you make a quick play, you're going to have to beat your player off the wall to be able to beat them back off the wall, and then have, like, you could just, as you can kind of see, you can kind of build that into a give and go. I'm thinking that for my own group, to be honest with you, just because I think it's, as you say, like it's tough for them to know where to go, but if they come in, they turn towards the net. If the backpack player kind of gives that support, now depending on whether they beat the player or not, now you can have that give and go, and then that crossover step you talk about creates separation. So I just wanted to add that. I think it's great, and I really appreciate you.
Oh, thanks.
Kind of sharing.
No, it's my pleasure. And again, this, Tom, like they struggle to just get open and be creative and like go to find space. And so I'm trying to use terms that are universal, that will work with our youngest players all the way up to our oldest players, but also not infringe upon, some coaches like that, I call it the low to low play, like the low behind the net to the low slot, right? They love that little low to low kick out, quick shot on the net. Some of them want to bring it back up to the D and reload through the top. So all of this will work irrespective of what the team system is. So I just want to show a quick drill here. And once I've done this practice plan with the attack retrievals, then we start to get into a lot of 2-on-1s. So this would just be a way to engage the goalies a little bit more. So we're dumping the puck in. The player that gets it's on offense. So you're rewarded by hustling and winning a race, but the other one's coming quick. So you've got to work to beat her because there's going to be hard pressure because the other person also wants to win the race. So this is very universal, and you can run it as an attack version or a breakout version. Here it would be the attack version. So the player is going to retrieve it. Other player knows she's on D. This player's just trying to beat her. I keep it below the tops of the circles, or else they start to come up here and like tight turn 42 times. Right. And then if you didn't have the goalies or you wanted to work on your breakouts, obviously you could do it the opposite way around. And the player who retrieves it's trying to skate it out, and the other one's forechecking and trying to score. So it just makes it more game-like for them. I also would do it, I have here as a 2-on-2, but I do it as a 2-on-1 as well. So to start to get them to think about the backpack, you'd have a second player here in the line, and whichever team touches it first instantly adds a second player. They don't have to pass to her. She immediately can jump in the play. So the second player in this line, if there was another X, or this should be an O, I guess, if there was a second player in each of these lines, whoever wins this race and wins possession immediately engages her second player. So now they have that quick 2-on-1. And now we have quick support. And you'll see if you just do it, the second player like stands up here and doesn't do the backpack. You're like, dude, what did we just talk about? Like for the last hour? I'm like, oh, I have to go close. So they go close, and then you start to see little, chip plays off the wall or little crosses, right? But their instinct is to like go and stand over here and bang their stick like they're open. And then you can do it to 2-on-2 version as well, where if the defending team then gets possession, she automatically adds a second player. So we've all done drills where it's like add a man, where you have to pass it out to add the second player. But I like the idea of having the instant add because it's really encouraging quick support. And it's a little bit more game-like, right? You're watching here, who's winning this battle? Oh, we won the battle, bam, I got to go and support her. Oh, my teammate got it, bam, I got to go and give quick support. So that one, I often do at the end of these practices, and it like instantly ties everything together. And I always have the coaches of the team on the ice with me. So they're starting to use the terms and say, oh, you weren't the backpacker, we had to do this, or did you scan the ice? And so they've learned as well as we go through the practice, using the key terminology. And then this is what I call this drill. I think this is Wally's drill, like the 2-on-2 continuous, where you have to break it out to get out. But I use this a lot at the end of my practices with teams. So these two start on the attack, these two are defending, these two have to break it out to exit the drill. And if these two lose it, they become the defenders. I think we've all seen a drill like this before, Wally's talked about before. So to make it more retrieval, I would have the players who are on attack. So when this breakout pass is made to the X's in line, they have to put it to the wall and retrieve their own puck. So we can add a little bit. It's not encouraging dump and chase, okay? But if I wanted to actually watch them use these retrievals, I would make two conditions. One, you have to dump it in and recover it. And the defending team, okay? Oh, it's the Erica. Thank you, Tim. I would have you dump it in. So you have to recover it, but the defending team has to touch the blue line before they can come and try and get the puck back, so that they don't like just hang out by their goalie and win the race, right? So you can imagine here, X breaks it out to X. The O's have to clear. X has to dump it in, and now we have to attack 2-on-2 off a retrieval. So that's a way to kind of bring it full circle. And I'm using this drill all the time with teams, so I can manipulate it based on what we worked on in the practice and switch the conditions to get what I want out of it.
Talk about that drill, because Peter Smith, working with the national team, he did a 3-on-3 checkers on 2D. That was it. The D had to evasive skate, use each other, figure it out, and cope with pressure. It was an outstanding drill for them to deal with the pressure and learn how to create time and space and yet support each other. And they would have to skate it out. There was no support. Another addition to that drill, it's 2 versus 2 plus 1, where the third player is in the slot area. They slide from side to side. They can shoot or pass. They're available. And then another phase of it, it becomes 3-on-2. So there's always a high forward. So you're playing different numerical situations, learning to read and act. And the 2-on-2 it's really that evasive skating. You get it out and pass it out, use your teammate, maybe pick, who knows. But there's so much that can be done on this. At what age level, like, would you consider doing some of the things we've talked about? This here plus what I've mentioned.
Well, this drill, I start with U11, and it would be from typically the ringette line down. And I would encourage the defenders to skate the puck out, not to pass it out, because at U9 and U11, we're still really encouraging players to be able to skate themselves out of trouble. So this drill, I start with our rep teams at U11 for sure. It's not always beautiful. It's actually really not beautiful in the beginning, but they don't get trapped in their end. And this is really like at U11, this is how a lot of the breakouts happen anyways, right? Like someone just turns up the ice and goes because the ice is so big relative to the size of the players. If I look at the rest of the practice, I mean, obviously the down ice tight turns, we would start more basic for the U9 and U11s, but it would still be in there. We'd work our way up to deception. We would do the figure 8 once I know they can do tight turns. Retrievals, I would absolutely start with retrievals early with the players, but it's got to be fed by tight turns. So I would say all of this we can do with U9s and U11s for sure. Breakout retrieval. So I'll go back to the other practice plan because that's a little bit more simple. So let's see if I can find it here. Sorry, my desktop is gross. So I would do this open ice retrieval skated out, absolutely, with the little kids. Again, most of the teams I work with are rep, but even I work with some house league development stuff. They can do this drill for sure. And they can probably get to backpack the U9s and U11s of close support and turning. And then you just apply that all over the ice, right? So I don't know that I would necessarily get to the regroup and entry until a little bit later for those players, right? Like, or we could just spray it out and you just tight turn and go up the ice. I do that in my skills practices all the times, right? It's just one player going in and being evasive and skating it in. So I would start a lot of drills that way with the U9s and U11s. So they just continue to work on those deceptive, explosive retrievals. And then they can add the backpack player and the little play. But to me, that's team play, U9 and U11. I know I've told this story before, but our U11 AAs last year, who were getting annihilated at the beginning of the year and end up winning bronze at provincials. The only change I made during provincials was I introduced the backpack player. We didn't have a backpack. We had a couple of really good players who could skate the puck all the way down the ice. And then, of course, you get to provincials and all the other teams know who those players are. They just forecheck the crap out of her, or anytime she gets it, they just chase her. So the only change I made to the team is I said, we have to have a backpack player everywhere that puck carrier goes. I don't care where she is. We need a second player who's slightly behind her to pick up the garbage. And it was like a light bulb went off. All of a sudden, we had support everywhere. And we had one kid who was, 5'5" and could skate like the wind. And other teams would literally send 4 players on her. And we would just have our little backpack. And what happened? She lost the puck, and our little backpack player would go get it and skate down the ice with it. It was like instant support. We didn't practice it. I didn't draw it on a board. I just said, hey, you got to have this second person really close by. So when it all falls apart, you can get the puck. And if it doesn't fall apart, you can hug her when she scores. Like, you'll be right there. It's great. And they did it instantly. Like, they instantly made that change. And that was puck support. And all of a sudden we were moving the puck and carrying the puck with so much more ease. And I just started teaching them in open ice. And then I said, hey, like on the breakout too, let's have that backpack. And when the puck's in the offensive zone, let's have that second player. And at U9 and U11, where it's just whack-a-mole, if you have that player waiting outside the scrum of the bananas all bunched together, she's going to come out with the puck.
Tim
So,
Bothwell.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, just all great, Kim. I just wanted to add 2 things. And we talked about this small area game before, but one small area game I like to play a lot with the teams I've been involved with. I call it a shoulder check game, and it fits in very, very nicely with this. And I don't have a board with me, but basically, you're playing from the circle tops. We've got team A on one side, lined up in a line at the circle tops. Team B on the other side, lined up in a line at the circle tops. One coach in the middle. If you're fortunate enough to have a couple of assistant coaches, then one assistant coach would stand with each of the teams. Okay, so that's how it starts. And you just throw a puck in. I like to shoot it on the goalie. 2 players from each team race for the puck. So it's basically 2-on-2 below the circle tops. Okay. So the first person on each team stationary in their lines at the circle tops, they're a passing and shooting outlet for each team, as Wally kind of suggested. But the trick is, and the really cool thing is, what we sort of morph to is those assistant coaches who are standing beside the shooter passer outlets at any time, they can sort of whack the player on their side and say, hey, change sides. And then that player has to go to the other side, and automatically this player has to change sides. So every time somebody retrieves a puck while they're playing 2-on-2 low, they've actually got a shoulder check to figure out where their passing support might be. And it really, really enhances the scanning and the shoulder checking from an offensive perspective. Like, where is my support? And then the other thing we obviously add is if you do pass to that outlet player who's stationary, they've either got to shoot or pass it back in or spot it somewhere in 2 seconds. 1,000, 2,000, that's all they've got. So it brings a lot into the game, and it's a great small area game to add to all this stuff that you so accurately and in great detail pointed out here this morning. And the second thing I might add is we talked about this before as well, for coaches out there who are working with either older more skilled players or even some younger but quite skilled players. In terms of the deception on the puck, going back, yep, head fake, head and shoulder fake, weight shift fake. But Reed Cashman has some great footage on the coach's site where you teach an actual toe turn to add to your deception. So you want to go that way as you're coming back to the puck, full quick toe turn and then tight turn the other way is really, really deceptive, but it's a tough skill. And again, for more advanced players at whatever age group. So just thought I'd throw that in.
There's your drill, Tim.
I had a question, Tim.
There you go. Sure, Wally.
You mentioned the U11 team going on and winning, you know, a medal in the provincials. I'm just curious, to what degree, like, did you coach that team, or were you just out occasionally, or what was the ratio of your presence to get these concepts across to them?
No, that's a great question. So they're a AA team. I ran their training camp at the beginning of the year. So it was like, you know, an hour and a half a day for 5 days. And at that point, I would have characterized them as a BB team. Like, they were not a AA team. As they were quite weak. Their first game of the season, they lost 12-1. So like they lost through Christmas. I don't think they won a game, or if they did, like, it was beating another not so AA team. Throughout that time, I wasn't their regular skills coach, but I was on with them and their head coach, kind of as a support staff, like helping him. So he's an older guy. He's coached forever. And the great thing about Steve is he teaches all possession. Like, you have to skate yourself out of trouble. If he teaches one thing, that's the one thing he teaches. Get it? It's all stick handling, crossovers, quick feet, edges, pushing, like, he has this whole skill progression he does in the middle of the ice with them for like 15 minutes. And it's like, they touch the puck 8 billion times. They change direction 8 billion times with their head up, calling out numbers. And what we saw was all of them became extraordinarily confident carrying the puck. So that they just carried the puck everywhere. And that's how they started to win, is they could just break pressure on their own. They didn't need anybody else. They could tight turn, they could turn up, they could go. And he teaches this, like, he's been teaching this for decades. And you see with his older players that are in our U15 and our U18, you can tell who was coached by Steve, because they're all extremely confident possessing the puck under pressure and breaking pressure on their own. So that's sort of his focus. And I would say, okay, I was more like coach advisor. Hey, we need to get a little bit more reps in practice. Hey, let's try 3 stations. Like, he knew what he was doing, but it was kind of like just making it a little bit better, a little bit more efficient. Other than that, I didn't coach them at all. They had 3 very good, like, knowledgeable coaches. And in provincials, he just asked me to come, because I would see them all the time at practice, and I'd help push pucks and give feedback in practice, right? Like as an assistant, hey, hold your hands like this, put your leg there when you turn, but I wasn't running the drills. So I came on the bench and I just stood there and observed, right? I wasn't going to say anything. You guys, those of you who've seen me coach know me, like I talk all the time, but I was just standing there. And these coaches talk like some of the stuff they're saying, like junior complicated. I'm like, whoa, okay, these kids cannot pick up what you're putting down, but they can all skate with the puck and they all beat everybody great. So I was watching over the course of the 5 games, I think it was 5 games, going, okay, like what do they need? Okay, the coaches are giving them too much. The coaches are excited. We're in provincials and they kept winning. So they get more and more excited, which means they're talking more. And like everything's more stressful. And I'm just like showing up. So there's no stress on me. It's not my kid. So I was just like the calm, like between the crazy. And so the first game, I didn't really say much of anything until Steve said to me, hey, like, do you want to talk to them between periods? Or do you want to say something in the dressing room after the game? I'm like, sure. And then the second game, I said a little bit more. And then when we got to the bronze medal game, which nobody thought we would get to, that's when I said to the coach, I'm doing the pregame. No one else gets to talk in the pregame. And it was like a 2-minute pregame. And we got scored on the first shift. So it wasn't a very good pregame. But we ended up winning in overtime. So I guess it worked out. But yeah, I didn't come in guns a-blazing because I thought I'll just come on the bench for one game. It's kind of fun for the girls. You know, like I wasn't, and then they kept inviting me back because they kept winning. And I was like, okay, I'll just keep coming. And then when we won, they're like, oh, Kim, thanks so much. I'm like, I mean, I think more than anything else, I was a calming presence. I've obviously coached a lot. So I think the parents and the players, like, were excited about that, and the coaches. But it was just those like little nuggets, like things like backpack pressure, or being able to say to, you know, some of the more talented players, right? Like, oh, see how they're all coming to you? Like, now you got to do this. And the ones who are less confident, I had been on the ice with them enough to know what their one really good thing was. So I knew well enough to know, like, that kid can skate like the wind. And so they'd be at the gate and I just send her out and be like, Sally, you got to just go and cause chaos. Like, just go in there. And so there was like, I'd say half the team where my only instruction was to just hunt the other team. I don't care what you do. Just hunt them. They get the puck, hunt them. That was all the coaching they got from me all weekend, and they loved it. They're like, yes, I'm going to hunt. And they were all tiny, so no one got penalties. They just hunt. Sometimes they got penalties, though. Sorry. But all of a sudden, we're turning over pucks all over the place. I didn't tell them how to hunt. But hunt, like, go get them. Get that puck, hunt. And they're like, okay. So hunting and backpack were like the only 2 things that might have been new terms. But, you know, at that level, it made a significant difference. And I've coached long enough to know, finally, that less is more. You just give them a couple things and be great at those couple things. And it worked out. But again, we scored in overtime, shorthanded, with a girl going end to end, scoring from below the goal line, after every coach on the bench is like, ice it, because we're on the penalty kill. Ice it. And she just dangled everybody and shot it from behind the net and went in. So, like, we don't know anything. It wasn't planned. But the team we beat in the bronze medal game was the team that beat us 12-0 the first, or 12-1 the first game of the year. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, I didn't reinvent the wheel. Steve is basically fully competent and comfortable doing it on his own. But I think that's a bit of the art of coaching. Once you've done it a long time, like we have, is you can just come in and give a few key points that can make a massive difference, as opposed to coming in and trying to change a lot of things. Because by that point, with U11 players, you're not going to change anything. It's impossible. So that was it. And I would, you know, if I was going on the bench with the junior team, I would do the same thing. It would be a couple key things, 1, maybe 2, that I observe would have a significant impact on the way they play the game. So yeah, I talked enough today, Wally. Let someone else talk.
I got another question for you. You're sort of a mentor, skill developer, coach. You're a full-time employee of the association. Everybody knows you. Coaches are going to ask you to come on the bench comfortably. And out here, as a retired former coach, I'm asked to mentor, not by the coaches, by the association, because they think their coaches need help and the coaches aren't comfortable with that. So I find mentorship really doesn't work when it comes from an assigned perspective. And over the years, you built a relationship that's created a trust and respect where they're happy to have you on the bench with them. And I think the biggest challenge is people with so much experience. There's an art to mentorship. And the first thing is, how do you build that relationship to gain that trust and respect? So being asked to go on the bench is huge. And what you've given me is tips on mentorship, because I've been asked to formally mentor a coach who is comfortable with me being there. And I'm definitely really appreciate this last portion of what you said. So anybody here, Tim Taylor, I'm curious if you're still on. Does any of this resonate with you and anybody else, what you've taken from Tim's presentation? I know I'm a teacher, a progressive drill person, and it's tactical skills we're talking about here. When you do a hockey clinic, they say skating, forward, backward, turning left or right, forward striding, backward striding. At no place does tactical skating come in. And I think what Kim's done is related the skating, evasive tight turn skating, and the concepts of team play with support in the backpack in a brilliant way that the backpack, the kids will get the picture. The hunt, they'll get the picture. So keeping it simple, that's the biggest takeaway I get out of this. Tim Taylor, you there? Not sure. Okay, anything else? Tom, I don't know how long you've been with us. Have you been in or out? But you're a games guy. I'm a progressive teaching guy. And Tim's, like myself, a progressive teaching person. And yet both of you get results. What are your takeaways from Kim's presentation, and then talk a bit about what you do that gets results?
I can really see what Kim is saying works. And we always do the small, skill things like that, and then try to put them into game situations, which I'm sure Kim does. Like last night, Cassie was teaching skating through the hands and angling, and so that was real individual skills. And we'll progress to games and more moving drills to that kind of stuff. I know I used your sequence, the breakout, where you dump it in and everybody is, the player that goes back for the puck and everybody gets a puck on the wall, and then we work with the player up the middle and then the three together and this kind of thing. So it's we all teach the same thing, just a little bit, a little bit different. Jim did a skill last night. Well, Cassie was teaching the angling. He took half the team and they played 4-on-4, and we had no goalie. So 4-on-4, and they just had to, hit the top of the net. But anyways, the rule was everybody has to get a pass before you can score. And the whole idea is the player with the puck has to move, and the players without the puck have to get open. And, the player has to see that, because we found that, the puck support wasn't very, very good. They weren't really looking, and the players without the puck weren't getting open. So that's the kind of way that we go about that sort of thing. But, it's really good stuff that Kim's doing.
Tom,
I tried to put something on the chat here. It's a really good, I think it's from Switzerland. This guy sent this really good skill video with all kinds of NHL clips. But it says you're temporarily blocked on my screen, so it didn't come through. But if it comes through, it's worthwhile looking at. some of the amazing stuff people do with the puck. And
Tim, I'd just like to mention Cassie Campbell is helping Tom coach a Pee Wee 13 team that is playing in a boys league, I believe a Division II league. I'm going to mentor the other team's coach that plays in the same league, and they practice one following the other, and at times they have joint practices. So
well,
I'm in.
Wally, that other team played your Cochrane P3 people last night.
Yep.
And they played an exhibition game, and they hardly touched the puck the first 5 minutes, and then they got better and better, and they ended up tying 3-3 at the end of the day.
Oh, that was good. I was going to call the team manager to try to find out, but it's just keeping in the game and staying active here. So, Peter, any comments before we close off? Kim, I'd like to have you on again and make sure we get our video working. And my chat doesn't work either right now, so I don't know what to do there. But we're definitely going to have you on again, Kim, and take another approach like this, approach a tactical area that you would do so well, and then cover it, because these are details that we really appreciate and have to sort of condense and simplify so that the coaches we work with have a degree of understanding. Peter, anything to comment on?
I do. Yeah, I really enjoy the fact of I like the verbiage, right? I think the backpack is great imagery for sure. We've already said that, right? And hunting pucks is honestly a phrase that I've used forever. One of the things that I'd like us to see and this doesn't apply to this group because they're not really youth coaches so much, but the 6, 7, 8-year-old kids using that phrase, get open for a pass. So if I'm in the corner with the puck and let's say Kim is the kid I tell to get open, generally that 6, 7-year-old is going to go all the way to the high blue line, the opposite corner, and start banging their stick and thinking they're open because they're not near anyone. But in a game situation, there's 8 people in between that, so that pass is never, ever going to get through. So I always try to teach and talk to the kids and explain, get yourself in a position to get the puck back, right? So then now you start to learn about getting inside players, and maybe it's a closer pass, but that's okay, right? Because we're gaining space, we're gaining time. But the whole idea of just get open, I mean, it applies in football because you can throw the pass over the guy and that works. But in hockey, I'd love us to use that term less with younger kids and more getting them in a position to get the puck back, because once you do that, you start to complete passes, you get success, and then you're also being to teach simple things like puck support. So, but I love verbiage. That's a big part of, I think, what we say and what the kid hears sometimes are two different things.
Peter, I watched Tom Malloy's team practice, and I watched Wes's team practice, and I took copious notes when Wes's team practiced, and Tom stopped them from playing a neutral zone game, and he did a little bit of a comment on getting open and whatnot. I didn't hear what he was saying. I was sort of an eye in the sky, but they immediately, U13 girls, got better. They made themselves available. So I shared with Tom as a mentor, trying for Wes what I would work on related to that. And the first thing, and I want to share with everybody here, Kim, if you do a coaching clinic and all the coaches are on the ice, you have one puck and they're spaced in the neutral zone, and you ask them, are you open to receive a pass? Get open. They know to slide and get open. And you can pass the puck to one of them in the middle of the group, wherever. They have to handle the puck, and then that coach says, get open. And he looks around until everybody's open. And after 2 or 3 reps, if the coaches don't get that concept of getting open, you can do that with your team. I'm not sure at what age, but I'm sure they would get the idea of just getting open. And then I have the Hockey Canada put together a nice box support drill where a coach is in the middle. And I found when coaches were in the middle, even high level coaches that were skills coaches, they could not teach that box support drill because they just thought it was a 3 versus 1 keep away drill inside a circle with 4 pylons, and it wasn't. So the progressive teaching of the idea, I think, is essential for coaches to get before players are going to get them. And I just wanted to throw that out there because everyone here works with coaches more now than with players now. And if we can affect a coach, you're going to affect thousands of kids down the road. So keep up the good work. You know, Kim, any other thoughts and anything to add?
No, I think that's it for me. When I do that box drill, I tell them they got to they're trying to make an elbow. So wherever the puck goes, they have to have like an elbow, like a 90 degrees. So as the puck moves, they have to recreate the elbow, and it seems to like trigger well. But that's one that I've used to teach breakout and ozone as well, right? So take that box drill where you make the elbow and then move it in through your breakout and your ozone attack. So that would generally be a little bit older that I would try to implement it in team play, probably U15. But I could see easily if you repeated it enough that the U13 players could get it and use it quite effectively, especially in the offensive zone, right? If the net's in the middle of that box, it becomes very clear how you're creating support there, right? If you had 2 players below the net and the third player's up top, sliding across to support in the elbow, it works pretty well. But yeah, I love that drill. Just they have to be able to pass first. That's
Okay.
First thing to manage. But thanks, guys. Wally, thanks for the opportunity. Let me know if you need any of the materials. I think I already sent you the practice plans, but yeah, I appreciate everyone's time.
Can you, if you send the plans to me, I'll share them.
Yeah, I sent you the PDFs of the 2 practice plans that I went through today.
Super. That was excellent. So I'll include that when I post this entire presentation. I don't know whether it's my mental state or memory, but when Bruce Beaton spoke last week, it was so detailed that I didn't know where to start or stop in terms of what to cut. Similar to here, there's progressive things you can go through stage by stage, but I think providing the practice plans, having the written plan, they will be able to listen to and listen to the whole thing in their own good time. And you really can't see the pictures, but if they do take time to sit down, I think they'll grasp the concepts. Thank you very much for those magic words, I call them, Q words. They are the art of communication. So if you come up with any more, share them. And the elbow right now, box support is the elbow. Get open, that's the elbow. They visualize it, they'll get it. So thanks again, Kim. I'm going to close this off and hope everybody has a great weekend. I'm getting an arena named after me here in Calgary on on the 15th, I believe. And Tim Bothwell and I are going to be attending George Kingston's induction into the UFC Hall of Fame on the 13th. So it's going to be an interesting week. So, all right, everybody, it's time to move on and attend to my pet and get my dishes done and maybe some vacuuming done. So take care, everybody. Thanks for coming on.